This is Anarchast.
Hey Outlaws, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. And I've found a person on YouTube. She's only been on YouTube for like 2 weeks, and she already has about as many views as I've had in the last 2 years. And her name's Josie the Outlaw. And I have to say, Josie, I find this very unfair. You're saying a lot of the same things as I am, but you're a pretty girl, and you get hundreds of thousands of views, no problem, and I'm sitting here just slagging away, getting 1,000 views per video. I think it's very unfair, and I think we should pass some sort of law, because, we have to make sure everything's equal. And
well, yeah, it should be illegal.
It should be illegal, that's for sure. Very interesting. She's got some great videos, and it's definitely caught on very quickly. I'm not even sure how. Well, I guess, a pretty girl with a gun, that gets quite a few views right off the bat. But before we get into all of that, let me ask you, Josie, how did you become an anarchist?
Well, I think that I've always actually been one. I just didn't have a term for it. I didn't know that that's what it was. I have, from a very young age, I was raised in an environment where I was encouraged to question everything. Although I went through 12 years of rigid Catholic schooling, I was almost unschooled before we knew what it meant, in a way that I was encouraged to read. I was shown the other side of things. So it was always there, and I always had those doubts, and I always had this idea of that it wasn't necessary, that we didn't need to be told what was right and what was wrong, and it kind of was taking our free will away, in a sense. So I always had these feelings, but never really discussed it, because at that point, it was just so abnormal to feel that way or think that way. I mean, I was 13 years old once I started really getting into reading these things, and I read Fahrenheit 451 at age 13, and I was like, wow, I just started seeing a lot of things happening in real life that just paralleled that, mirrored that. So it wasn't until I would say, I don't even know. A year ago, I would say, that I actually understood what the word anarchism meant. And I was like, oh, there's a word for that. I actually picked up Larkin Rose's book, and I didn't tell him, I didn't read it until a couple months after we were working together, but I read the first 2 pages, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, duh, someone else gets it too. And I just hadn't spoken with anyone about it. And then once I realized it and had terms to put on it, and knew that I wasn't the only person thinking these things, it was a lot easier for me to explore and discuss and learn and develop my philosophy.
Yeah, Larkin Rose is a past guest on Anarchast, and I guess the book you read is The Most Dangerous Superstition, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, a great guy. And how did you, I think you know him, how do you know him?
We actually work on the project together. I met him at Anarchy in NYC. I think you spoke there as well. And that's where we originally met, and we just spoke for a couple minutes, and from there he contacted Michael Salvi from Philadelphia, asking if he knew how to contact me, and if I wanted to help out with a project, a completely different project. I said, sure, we'll see. And we started to do that, and then once we sat down and were talking and about so many things, he just said, let's put this aside, and I want to help you get your idea out. So that's how that happened.
That's great. With people like yourself and Amanda Billy Rock, another past guest on Anarchast, you guys are getting all these views on YouTube. I think Larkin and I, we'll just retire and let you girls do it. You get all the views anyway. We'll just write books and, smoke cigars and drink wine and watch you guys. You guys are getting a lot more attention than we have. Larkin's been doing this for 20 years, and you're probably almost going to be surpassing him in view counts in a few months. So, but it's great. I really like it. And so you just started a few weeks ago, and I know that Larkin, when he was on Anarchast, he mentioned he had a few secret projects he was working on, so I guess one of those was you.
Yes, we didn't really talk about it, because at that point we were just formulating it, so there wasn't really much to talk about. We were just kind of playing it by ear and going along, and so yeah, that's what we do.
So what was the general concept? Tell people, what is Josie the Outlaw?
Basically, it's just the goal is to obviously to wake people up, but to make the message of true anarchism and voluntarism palatable to people who hear the word anarchy and think chaos. Your typical run-of-the-mill member, law-abiding, tax-paying citizen who most of the time thinks of obedience as a virtue, and it's not. So it's kind of easing them into it without watering the message down at all. So kind of, being blatant about the fact that, I don't vote, I don't do this, and this is why, and this is why it's wrong, this is why it's immoral, and have you ever thought about it this way? Kind of just comparing it and putting it in a way that will make people think. It's taking people one step beyond their comfort level without being, really aggressive and just offensive.
Yeah, I've noticed your style, and I think it's good. A person like Larkin, he has a video, when to shoot a cop, and you have a video, what was it, how to talk to cops, or I have a question for cops? A message to police, yes. You're so gentle, and so you come at it from quite a different angle, just as a very calm person, just asking some questions and pointing out the cognitive dissonance in people's minds, and just sort of starting the conversation. So you're definitely doing a great thing. And you recently did a video that I really liked, because we've really been promoting jury nullification a lot in the last month or so, and we had James Cox on just recently talking about it. We were down in Chile with all of these are past Anarchast guests: Luke Radowski, Angela Keaton, Jordan Page, Bob Murphy, and we all decided that we should really get behind jury nullification, because it's one of the only ways to really make a difference in the society, especially in the U.S. today and around the world, but really in the U.S., where there's just such a police state now. Everyone's getting pulled over every day and searched and break 30 laws a day without even knowing it. So that was really good. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your thoughts on jury nullification?
Well, I definitely in my past had, would get called for jury duty and think, oh, I don't want to do it. And then, as I started my process into this, I heard about jury nullification, and I thought, holy crap, that's an anarchist move. That's a total anarchist action, and it's the safest way to look the law in the face and say, bullshit, no thanks. So that's basically what I was like. I went through my phase of, and I still go to rallies, and I still consider myself somewhat of an activist. But like this, I absolutely don't condone working within the system, because it only legitimizes it. In my opinion, and from history, and God, you can just look through history, and the more you vote, the more freedoms you lose. So this is not working within the system, but it is safe. It's a very safe way. Not completely safe, but one of the safest. Just because a verdict cannot be questioned and cannot be overturned.
Yeah, and we should point out to people that we're not saying to go and serve on a jury, and if someone actually hurts someone or actually robs someone, to vote not guilty. That's definitely not what we're trying to say. What we're trying to say is, if there is no victim, and therefore no crime, and you feel that way, that you should go on a jury and you should vote not guilty and get that person freed. It's just terrible what happens. You hear about it every day in the U.S. Someone's getting arrested for something. It's no victim. They had maybe a little marijuana in their pocket or something. And this is terrible. It just, they end up they have to spend a lot of money on lawyers now. This whole system is a big system. It's a big scam. And the lawyers are all involved in it as well. And they like it. They like all these laws. It gives them lots of business. And so they'll lose a lot of money that way. And then if they get arrested, they might have to go to jail. A lot of these people have families. And if the person who was making the money in the family is in jail for 6 months, huge hardships. A lot of the times the family will be in dire straits. They'll have to go on some sort of welfare program, which is another state program that ruins people. It's just terrible. So if as anarchists, and I've talked about this before, but I'll mention it again, if you didn't see it earlier, that's one of the only duties as a citizen that I do support. And actually, just like you, I wasn't fully aware of it until recently, because just like you, I avoided anything to do with the state. But this is one thing to do with the state that we should, as freedom-loving people and caring people, which is what we are, anarchists, should do, because you have an actual opportunity to free somebody who's actually been aggressed against. When you're kidnapped by cops and thrown into a cage and there's no victim, the actual victim is the person being arrested, and the actual crime is the crime being done by the police and the courts and the prosecutor and the judge. And so, yeah, I definitely support that. One of the things that I've noticed, you carry a lot of weaponry in some of your videos. Have you always been a gun owner, gun user, gun person?
Yes, I have. I was, like I said, I was raised in a way that like I said, I was encouraged to question everything, but also it was just a given in our house that we protected ourselves, and that wasn't, and it wasn't guns were not. I never knew growing up. I never knew that my father or mother owned a gun, and I still don't know if they do, for the record. However, it was definitely made clear that the right to keep and bear arms is very important. Whether or not it's written on a piece of paper, we absolutely have the right, and these days the necessity. It's necessary to be able to protect yourself. I'm not. Clearly, I stand by the non-aggression principle. But I will most certainly stand up and do whatever I can to save my own life or the lives of anyone around me that's being threatened.
Yeah, a lot of people get a little confused about the non-aggression principle. They think, oh, that means we're docile and you can just beat us up like we're Gandhi and we won't fight back. That's not it at all. It just means you don't aggress against other people. If someone aggresses against you, you do whatever it takes to defend yourself from it. And try to do it within limits. If they're just, punching you in a bar, you don't necessarily shoot them, but you definitely can punch back. And if you do feel fear for your life, you can take that other person's life. That is not against the non-aggression principle. And of course, no one wants to see that happen. And of course, a lot of this stuff's all caused by the state, because there's a lot of poor people who have all been really robbed by central banks and taxes and regulations. And then they've probably been arrested when they're 18 for drinking a beer. And then they have a criminal record, and then they can't get a job. And then they go out and they start robbing people. All these problems are usually caused by the state. In a really anarchic world that really worked well, and we don't know if it will work well, but I really would like to see us get a chance to try it. I think it would just be such a different world. It'd be so much less violence and so much more prosperous, because so much of what people produce is just taken away by the government in so many different ways. It's not just taxes, it's not just regulations, it's not just inflation by the central banks. It's all those things and a ton of more things that they do that actually destroys wealth. And just like you a little bit, actually you're a bit more. I was born in Canada, so I kind of always had this anti-gun stuff all around, and I didn't know what to think of it. Just like you, I think I was always was an anarchist, but I didn't know there was words for it, and I didn't really totally understand the whole philosophy until probably about 10 years ago. and then I just loved it, and I've been doing it ever since. But I was just never surrounded by guns, so I got my first guns here in Mexico, actually, which a lot of people are surprised by, because a lot of people say, oh, I thought guns were illegal in Mexico. First of all, they're not illegal. You need a permit, which sucks, but you need a permit in a lot of places in the U.S. now. But secondly, no one here cares about the government much. They just don't listen to their rules. So
I love that.
So, but really, I think not only is it your right, and I don't mean right like written on a piece of paper, but just your natural right to protect yourself, but I think it's your responsibility. And I think when people have the ability to protect themselves, they're actually doing a duty to society, because the more people who can protect themselves, the less violent society is. You can see that almost every state in the U.S., the more strict the gun laws are, the more crime there is, because the criminals know that there's less risk of them getting killed if they try to rob somebody. It's just obvious stuff, and it's quite sad to see what's been going on in the U.S. in terms of how they're really, it seems they're really working to take away guns from people.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are. And you did mention how it is basically, it's a responsibility to be able to protect others. And I think that's a major thing. And I know that Ayn Rand talks a lot about selfishness, and I agree with her to a point. But I have a big thing about selflessness, because I feel as though it's the selfless and the people who are willing to put themselves on the line to protect others, and let it be known that it's not going to be acceptable to harm others, and that's what pushes humanity forward. That's what saves lives. That's what it serves as an example to others and really inspires people. And it's just there's just that ripple effect of just being selfless and being the example rather than preaching. And there is a place for preaching, believe me. Don't get me wrong, but leading by example is such a great way to spread that. So.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing you brought up between selfishness and selflessness. I think we can have both. I think selfishness in terms of obviously we all know that we almost always act in our own best interest. That's just human nature. However, there is a lot of parts of humanity that is quite selfless. I just watched a video on the internet and it said something like, if you have lost your faith in humanity, watch this. And it was about 50 videos in a row of people who had fallen on train tracks and guys risked their lives to get them out. All kinds of people just saving other people, just totally selflessly. It's in our nature, actually. But because of the state and all the fear that they put out there, and as well in the U.S., a lot of times if someone gets hurt or something, a lot of people won't even go near them because they're worried about a lawsuit and things like that. So once again, the state works to take away our humanity quite a bit. I think human beings in general are quite giving and quite selfless in the right situation. If they see someone in need, in general, if they have the ability, most people will try to help. It's just natural, but the more the state gets involved, it just ruins everything. And
I agree. I watched a documentary just recently called I Am, and it does discuss that, how humans are hardwired to be compassionate. And I saw that video that you mentioned, and I got a little misty-eyed, and and it was just because it was just so instinctive. There wasn't a thought. It was just a woman fell on a train track, so the guy just jumped right on there, and that kind of a thing. And that's the fear of helping someone as a result of distrust is learned. That's not something we're born with. That's something that's taught, and like Amanda Billy-Rack says, unlearn fear. I think that's one of the best ways, and I think as soon as we can just reach enough people and deprogram them, the world would be such a happier place. Not perfect by any stretch of the word, but definitely a lot more compassionate.
Yeah, after watching that video, the first thing I thought was, I had no idea how many people just accidentally fall on train tracks. It was like 20 people just accidentally fell right when the train was coming. I was like, whoa, what are the chances of that? And then my second thought was, wow, it's amazing how people will rush to people's aids almost instinctively. And I really see that here a lot in Mexico. I have a sort of a hotel here. And it's not like my whole hotel, I own part of it, sort of thing. And there's a lifeguard, and at the pool, and it's quite a big pool, and there's ocean front, so people go swimming in the ocean, and actually the waves here in Acapulco can have quite a rip tide or whatever they call it, and the lifeguard's here is fairly normal Mexican lifeguard. He works out in the gym while he's working. He'll go take a nap. He's rarely at the pool, and I've actually seen 3 times people drowning, and he's never there, and twice in the ocean and once in the pool. And my instinct as well was to just run out and help that person. But in almost every instance, I was sitting there with my headphones on and my iPhone and stuff in my pockets, and I kind of just wanted to quickly get it off. I didn't want to ruin all my stuff. 2 seconds, I'm sure they'll be fine for 2 more seconds. But by the time I even got all my stuff off my iPhone and everything, already in every instance there was 5 or 10 people had jumped in one case into the ocean, and it was really quite dangerous. And these were just regular people, and they just every single time they saved them, and every single time the lifeguard would come back from his nap, and he'd be kind of groggy. He'd be like, "Did something happen?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it."
It is so great to see that. It really is.
And it's funny too, because we get some Americans come down, they get really angry. They'll be at the pool, not the ocean. The ocean's a little different. The pool, and they'll say, there should always be a lifeguard on duty. And, yeah, maybe, but you know how to swim, right? Protect yourself. And you got people around, if you have problems, they'll see you. But they're so programmed that we need some sort of laws. We need a lifeguard who's there exactly, always watching, because we know we can't possibly swim on our own, or things like that. So that's another way that some of the things, especially in the U.S., which is such a status place now, it's one of the most status places on earth, that it just warps everything.
Ugh, I know it really does, and it's been so gradual, and it's genius the way that it's employed, and it's it is amazing that now I can see it all, and I'm sure you experience the same thing as a lot of us do. And I can't turn on the television because I see it and I'm like, oh, propaganda, oh this, oh that, oh my goodness. So which is great, because it stops me from being distracted, and allows me to focus more on my writing and my research and all of that. But it is there are times where I'm like, man, I kind of miss being able to watch a movie and not picking it apart. My poor roommate, he can't even watch TV without me being like, do you see how these people are programmed? He's like, Joes, please.
I know, my wife doesn't even invite me to the movies anymore. She knows what I'm going to say. And she knows if I go, she's not going to enjoy it, because I'll be the exact same way as you. I'll be pointing at the screen what? The cop's the hero again? Do you see what they're doing? And she'll be like, just enjoy the movie. I'm like, I can't.
You can't when it comes to that. But I was really happy to see that the Hunger Games, when it came out, was so true to the book. And I read that a couple years ago, and I actually had spoken. I was describing it to Larkin, and I don't want to give anything away for anyone watching who hasn't seen it or read it. But it's just, and I actually was talking to Bob Murphy about it. I'm like, just see it, dude. You have to go see it. And he's like, ah. And then he did, and he's like, you were right. It is. It's one of, there's almost zero propaganda in it, which is almost unheard of for a Hollywood movie that promotes revolution and disobedience from the
Yeah, I've
government.
heard a lot about it, and I'm definitely going to see it. I haven't seen either one yet. Remember that Seinfeld episode? Do you ever watch Seinfeld, or are you too young?
No, I'm 30. I've seen Seinfeld.
Okay. It's funny watching it now, because they don't even have cell phones and stuff, and they're always like, oh, he's out of the house. Where is he? How can we possibly find him? It's like, whoa, this is weird. They actually mentioned internet in one of the episodes, one of the final episodes. Jerry said, I should get on this internet. I didn't even know that happened or whatever. But remember the episode where Elaine fell in love with the 14-year-old boy who had pics at a movie, like a movie rental place, like a Blockbuster? Favorite, yeah. I forget his name. Something, Randy's Favorites or something. There should actually be a row of that or something on the internet. It just should be like an anarchist telling other anarchists, these are movies that you can watch, right? So it would include V for Vendetta, Hunger Games apparently, Lord of the Rings for sure. I don't know if you know, but that's a huge, the ring is the government, and J.R. Tolkien said he basically was an anarchist. But it's a very limited amount, so we really need to find out what these movies are so that we can actually go to the movies or enjoy watching a Blu-ray or something sometimes. Breaking Bad for me was one TV show that I did enjoy, and I think that was written by a libertarian or possibly even an anarchist by the sounds of it.
I do remember, I think I would remember you and Carrie talking about that. She's...
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I haven't, no, I have
you've
yet.
got to see it. So I'll watch Hunger Games, you watch Breaking Bad, you'll love it.
Deal, I absolutely will, because I think that, I'm sure that my roommate has it on the cable.
Yeah, or Netflix or torrents or whatever.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, you'll find it. Yeah, it's really good. So yeah, while we're talking, if anyone knows of any other that we haven't talked about, movies or TV shows that anarchists can actually watch, please post in the comments down below so we have a few more entertainment options. It's kind of, I know you live on a mountain, a small mountain, you say, on the side of a mountain in Pennsylvania, so you might be a little bored and want to watch something sometimes. And I'm never bored, I'm super busy, but it is nice to relax every now and then and watch a movie or something. So maybe that's something that us anarchists can do. And if you do it, let us know, and we'll promote it on Anarchast and let people know. And Josie, I want to ask you, what's next for Josie the Outlaw?
We're just plugging along. The next one that the next video we decided to do, I just started writing that one, is prisons and schools.
Same thing.
Which is redundant, yes. But a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
So basically we're just going to highlight just the parallels, and I really like the way that it's going. It's funny because a lot of people probably wonder why it takes so long to make a video, because they're only about 8 minutes long. But we do go to a lot of different locations, and there's a lot, the editing. It's just Larkin and I, so there's a lot of work that goes into it. Plus, I have this project doesn't make money. So I actually have to have another job to support myself. So we do everything we can, and like you just mentioned, I might be bored, and I can't remember the last time I was bored. But I'm content where I live. I like that I live up here in a fairly secluded area with a wonderfully unintentionally agorist community. They don't even, like, people up here, I say anarchist, and they're like, huh? They just live that way. That's just the way it is.
That's great.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. I buy, my eggs I get from the Souter family, who, lives around the corner, and the grocery store is a family-owned grocery store, and, I've just bought antiques with silver. It's one of those things. It's just, I got lucky. I got very lucky with where I ended up, and I'm very content. But and I'm a city girl. I was always a city girl. Philadelphia has always been my battleground, and it still is. But so I hate to veer off the subject, but to get back to it, prisons and schools, and hopefully that'll be out within about a week and a half. That's our deadline. We don't always meet our deadlines because we don't have bosses, but
it's sort of like herding cats sometimes. We're not used to adhering to exact schedules and things. It's just not generally in our nature. However, I am an anarcho-capitalist, and one thing I've learned as a capitalist to make money, there's very few things you really need to know. One is always do what you say you're going to do. Another one is just always show up to meetings on time, and you were on time for this interview, so that was very good. But yeah, in general, when you get a bunch of anarchists together, it is a little hard to get them organized sometimes.
Yes, I do know. I definitely understand that, especially being involved in organizing and helping to organize and organizing a lot of rallies. 9 times out of 10, the protests and the speakers don't start until about an hour after. So my father is actually coming with me tomorrow to the final of Philadelphia and the Fed, and he's like, "Oh, what time is it?" And I'm like, "Well, 12 but 1." So, thankfully I'm usually on time. I've been, for meetings and interviews and that kind of thing. But when it comes to setting my own schedule, I'm like, it's fine. But luckily, Larkin and I are pretty good at encouraging each other to really, stick with certain things. If one of us veers off, then we kind of corral each other and, gently.
No force involved. That's great. Well, actually, now I understand why you might be so popular. You actually plan your videos. I literally sit down, pour a glass of wine, and turn on the camera. So maybe I should put more planning into my videos. But I think it's still, pretty girl with a gun. I think that's always going to outdraw me.
I do, and it's so funny because at first I was really, I was so offended at a lot of people saying that, and I was like, what? I gotta buck up and just kind of. I know that the message did get out there, and a lot of people heard it, and just reading a lot of the comments and getting emails from law enforcement and military, and that kind of encouraged me to realize that, maybe if someone considered that the video was, involved a pretty girl with a gun, that got them to start listening. And then hopefully once they did, they were like, oh crap.
Shit, now I have to think. I thought I was just going to enjoy watching this. Now I actually have to think.
I mean, that's what I'm going for. I want them to think so.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, use the tools you have. That's great. I don't have those tools, so I'm just trying to spread the message any way I can. But yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's the way you draw them in, and I think Amanda Billyrock's done something similar, And yeah, just use the tools you got. I'm sure I draw in a few girls and probably a lot of gay guys or something, but definitely the what a.
We were just talking about. We honestly were just talking about how charming you are. I'm like, he's just so charming and nice and gentle and not offensive, but assertive. So yeah, I think you're doing a pretty good job yourself.
I'm trying. All right, well, we should wrap this up. Why don't you let people know where they can see your videos, and if you have any other websites or anything like that?
Well, everything is all at josietheoutlaw.com. That's basically it.
And your YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel is Josie Outlaw. So, but all of the videos are on josietheoutlaw.com. So,
right.
And there are links to other things, some of the books that have been very influential. We got Bob Murphy on there, and Creature from Jekyll Island, and just some of the things that woke me up and just kind of struck a chord. Yeah, that's about it. And actually, we just put an article on there that we wrote. It's called Society on the Brink of Anarchy. So that'll be interesting. So.
Awesome. Well, keep up the great work. I really like what you're doing, and it's definitely obviously been popular already in 2 weeks. I was so surprised. And say hello to Larkin and tell him to keep up the great work too. He's a real jewel for our movement. Amazing guy. And yeah, so say hi. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
This is Anarchast.